in 1973, Ethiopia was known to the world as a romantic, if rather backward, feudal kingdom. We discovered, by chance, a very different Ethiopia.
This is a queue for food. These people are Ethiopian peasants. Once they had cattle, land and houses. They sold them all to buy food. Now they have only their rags. They're destitute. There are perhaps 1,000 people in this queue. In the province of Wollo, where they live, 700,000 people are in the same state. In Ethiopia as a whole, nearly 2 million people are suffering. In Wollo, there are 23 food distribution centres like this, feeding more than 250,000 starving people. Here, they receive 2 meals a day. The food, 2 handfuls of boiled wheat in the morning and a piece of bread in the afternoon, keeps them from death, no more. Last year, these people were strong, fit and active. They'd known hardship, of course. They'd suffered several years of drought. But a year ago, when the rains failed utterly, their crops failed too. This spring, the rains failed again. By April this year, they were starving. They dragged themselves exhausted into the towns, many of them dying on the way. These men, women and children have been like this now, surviving, not living, for 6 months. There has not been enough food. In the last 6 months in Wollo alone, at least 50,000 and possibly more than 100,000 people have died from the famine.
The famine in Ethiopia shocked the world. It also played some part in the overthrow of the emperor and his replacement by a Marxist regime more allied to the Soviet Union than to the United States. But the famine drove me to find out why such a disaster could take place, because it was clear that this was not just an act of God. The further you looked, you had to examine the basic social and economic structure of the country, because it was clear that this was at fault. And this was a structure which only survived because of a very tyrannical political regime. And it seemed to me that therefore revolution in Ethiopia was as inevitable as war in Rhodesia. And I became much more interested in the relationship between the people and their rulers.